Hello, YouTubers, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have 12 articles in this episode for you. All the URLs are in the description of the video for your convenience. It's off of Liberty Headlines, and it says conservative blame flies in all directions after Obamacare repeal pause. With the collapse of the U.S. House Republicans' legislative efforts to replace Obamacare, the blame game on the right has reached epic proportions. Many mainstream publications and pundits laid the failure at the feet of the Freedom Caucus, a group of conservative hardliners, and at their allies among outside hardline groups. But President Trump's Speaker Paul Ryan, moderates, and a general lack of patience all received plenty of incoming fire as well. Indeed, Ryan seemed to get it from all sides, with the right-leaning pundits blasting him. People close to Trump also pointed the finger at him. Starting with the Freedom Caucus, the Wall Street Journal editorialist ripped that conservative bloc eve before the bill officially failed. Editorial called the group the Freedom from Reality Caucus, of rule or ruin tactics. Conservative policy reforms in the bill, the Journal predicted that killing it would mean that only legislation could pass in the future would be far worse, by insisting on the impossible over achievable. The self-reliance of conservative purity could become the worst friends conservative ideas and free markets have had in decades. The Journal followed with another broadside the next day after Speaker Ryan pulled the bill. The conservative-leaning editorial page asserted that now the current Obama law, or Obamacare law, now belongs to the Freedom Caucus's Obamacare Republicans, who refused to replace it. Accusing them of not negotiating honestly, the Journal wrote, "You can't have good faith negotiations when one party doesn't know how to say yes or won't." At the Weekly Standard, veteran conservative journalist Fred Barnes took much the same line, characterizing the group as the gang of renegades running amok inside the House GOP. Brit Hume of Fox News echoed Barnes with a dozen posts all week long on Twitter. At Freedom Caucus and at Heritage Action caused this, he tweeted. They are the pie in the sky caucus, in keeping Obamacare in place, whom wrote that Obama himself should take at Freedom Caucus to dinner. Finally, President Trump himself weighed in, tweeting that it is the Freedom Caucus's fault that the abortion provider Planned Parenthood would continue to be funded and that Obamacare will remain in place. On the other hand, the Freedom Caucus was portrayed as heroes by conservative pundits who thought the House Ryan Care bill was fatally flawed because it did not fully repeal Obamacare. Eric Erickson at the Resurgent proclaimed the House Freedom Caucus saves America and asserted the legislation was deeply flawed and would have hurt a great many Americans. It would have made it harder for free market solutions to lower costs in health care and would have harmed senior citizens. Radio host Mark Levin likewise thanked the Freedom Caucus, whom he called the true constitutional conservatives, who stopped this disastrous bill from passing. Meanwhile, conservative outsiders and some rightist editorials painted Ryan as the boogeyman in all of this. And Investors Business Daily editorial said Paul Ryan is solely, oops, it jumped a little bit here. Paul Ryan is solely to blame for Ryan Care demise. Breitbart News touted a discussion about replacement to Paul Ryan as Speaker of the House, and as several news stories cited unnamed Trump aides blaming Ryan. Twitter watchers noted that Trump himself posted a tweet urging people to watch Judge Jeanine Pirro on Fox News, then Pirro in turn urging Ryan to step down. Trump arrows either. CNN Amanda Carpenter, for example, ripped him in a series of tweets, typical of which was this: President Obama worked for years to get Obamacare. You gave up on repeal after a couple weeks. Too complicated for you? Weak. And National Review's editors spread fault around but didn't spare what they call President Trump's erratic leadership. In the end, some sober writers spread blame to many quarters, while they complained that the biggest problem was what they called rush process with false early deadline. Republican U.S. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, who criticized the process throughout, told CBS's Face the Nation, "I think the House moved a bit too fast. 18 days is simply not enough time for such a major landmark legislation." And Washington Examiner managing editor Phil Klein seemed as one of conservative journalism's most detailed analysis of the healthcare policy, combined the same complaint with a touch of humor that will stand as the article's last word, noting that former President Obama spent 13 months working, selling, and cajoling people to pass Obamacare. Klein wrote, "The contrast between the Obama and the Democrats on health care and what just happened is stunning. House Republicans slapped together a bill in a few weeks, months if we're being generous, behind closed doors with barely any debate. They moved the bill through committees, blazing speed, and conducted closed-door negotiations that resulted in relatively minor tweaks to the bill. And within 17 days, Trump decided that he'd had enough and was ready to walk away if members didn't accept the bill as is." The scene in Duck Soup, in which Groucho Marx portrays Rufus T. Firefly, leader of the fictional Fredonia. Firefly conducts a cabinet meeting that he starts by saying he'll take up old business. One official says, "I wish to discuss the tariff." Firefly responds, "Sit down, that's new business." When nobody has any old business to discuss, he decides to turn to new business. And about that tariff, the same official interjects, "Too late," Firefly responds, "it's old business already." This is not too far off from the process we just witnessed. The article that I have for you is off of Liberty Headlines. It says, "NSA whistleblower, NSA spied on Congress, Supreme Court, and Trump." NSA whistleblower William Biney told Tucker Carlson on Friday that the NSA is spying on all the members of the Supreme Court, of staff, Congress, both House and Senate, as well as the White House. Biney, who served in the NSA for 30 years before blowing the whistle on domestic spying in 2001, told Tucker he firmly believes that Trump was spied on. Fundamentally, the entire fiber network inside the United States, and collecting all the data and storing it in a program they call Stellar Wind, Biney said. That's the domestic collection of data on U.S. citizens to other U.S. citizens, he said. Everything we're doing, phone calls, emails, and the financial transactions, credit cards, things like that, all of it. Some good comments at the bottom of this if you want to pull it up and read them for yourself. The next one is off of Liberty Writers, and it says, "Worse than Watergate. The CIA agent just came out and said 3 words that has Trump jumping for joy." CIA officer Colonel Tony Shaffer said that the basics of President Trump's claim is very likely true. 3 words that'll have Obama shaking in his boots. "Nothing has been the same since Trump tweeted that Obama wiretapped Trump Tower," and Shaffer said that the basic fundamental idea and claim is true. And there's some video here via Fox News in this if you want to pull it up and watch it. It's called Shaffer, Trump Wiretap Worse Than Watergate. The article goes on, says Trump was not physically wiretapped, so let's get away from that lie that the liberals keep pushing, the lie that Trump wasn't wiretapped. This is true. Trump wasn't wiretapped, but he was spied on using a different apparatus. Shaffer then said that the leaks were political, and you can tell. Clearly they were after gossip because it was political, Shaffer said. Shaffer then added that Trump's references to the wiretapping have totally changed the game. This needs to be aired everywhere. The next article is off Liberty Writers. Trump just did something to the Secret Service that no president has ever done before. Secret Service is going to get led by someone from the U.S. military for the first time ever. Sources are saying that the announcement will come next week. The timing coincides with a huge amount of White House security breaches that have been happening since Trump became president. It has asked for $60 million in money for the 2018 fiscal budget and was showed down. The Secret Service will now have a military man at the helm for the first time in modern history. According to the Washington Examiner, the Department of Homeland Security, John Kelly, is now prepping to name a senior armed forces officer to the agency's top job. Thank God this movie is going to inspire more rigorous discipline and get the Secret Service to recover from the terrible reputation that they have now. That's not all. According to the Daily Mail, 6 Secret Service members are in big trouble. At least 6 Secret Service employees are facing discipline over a security breach with a man they saw at the White House fence, or jump the White House fence, linger on the grounds for 17 minutes, and peer into the windows as alarms were blaring on March 10th. We know for sure at the end of next week, according to the Examiner. So there's that one. The next one's off BizPac Review. And it says, Trump to unveil new White House office. A SWAT team to fix the government to be led by Jared Kushner. President Donald Trump is expected to announce Monday that he has tapped son-in-law Jared Kushner to head up a new White House office designed to target government stagnation. Fulfilling one of Trump's campaign promises, the office will overhaul the federal bureaucracy by incorporating ideas from the business world, the Washington Post reported. The newspaper referred to the effort, which may privatize some functions of the government, as a SWAT team to fix the government. We can confirm we are making an announcement tomorrow to establish a White House Office of American Innovation and look forward to sharing additional details, a senior White House official told Fox News on Sunday. The president said the effort was a continuation of his promise to produce results. All Americans, regardless of their political views, can recognize that government stagnation has hindered our ability to properly function, often creating widespread congestion and leading to cost overruns and delays, he said in a statement to the Washington Post. I promised the American people I would produce results and apply my ahead of schedule under budget mentality to the government, Trump added. An interview on Sunday with the Post, Kushner discussed the office, which he views as an offensive team capable of attracting top talent from both inside and outside the government. We should have excellence in government, Kushner said. The government should be run like a great American company. Our hope is that we can achieve success and efficiencies for our customers, who are the citizens. The members of Kushner's team include Gary Cohen, director of the National Economic Council; Chris Liddell, assistant to the president for strategic initiatives; Reed Cordish, assistant to the president for intergovernmental and technology initiatives; Diana Powell, senior counselor to the president for economic initiatives and deputy national security advisor; and Andrew Bremberg, director of Domestic Policy Council. The next article is off of Liberty Writers. It says, oh boy, what Steve Bannon just told the president has anti-Trump Republicans sweating bullets. House Republicans couldn't round up enough votes Friday to pass their health care reform. Paul Ryan ultimately called off the vote because it was 15 votes short of making through the House. Of course, Democrats played the usual part of obstructing and refused to even give the bill a chance. Even though not being able to repeal Obamacare seems like a failure, Steve Bannon is using it to his advantage. Chief strategist Stephen Bannon is advising President Donald Trump to create a shit list of Republicans who refused to get behind the American Health Care Act. Bannon is taking a tally of who was loyal to the president and willing to stand by his decision and who won't. One official explained, not sure if I'd call it an enemies list per se, but I wouldn't want to be on it. Reports say Trump agreed with the list, having taken a "you're either with us or against us" approach. But even though the vote failed this time, President Trump isn't giving up. The president tweeted on Saturday morning, "Obamacare will explode and we'll get it together and piece together a great healthcare plan for the people. Do not worry. Obamacare will explode." I just read that, okay. President Trump knows Obamacare is hurting the American people, and he will not quit until it is repealed. It just looks like it's going to take a little longer than expected. I think they need to take it one step at a time. Let's repeal that piece of crap that they've got in there now, and then go to working on something else if they feel that it's necessary. I'm not so sure it was necessary in the first place. So repeal it, repeal it, repeal it. Me in charge. The next one we have here is off of libertyheadlines.com. It says Senate Democrats stall committee vote for Neil Gorsuch. Democrats have successfully succeeded in delaying the committee vote for Neil Gorsuch, President Donald Trump's Supreme Court pick. The Judiciary Committee was scheduled to have a committee vote for Gorsuch on March 27th with a full Senate vote on April the 3rd. Now the full Senate vote will not take place until April the 5th. Like all of their tactics so far, Senate Democrats cannot actually stop the confirmation vote from occurring, but they are doing their best to make the process as long and as painful as possible. Rachel Bovard, Director of Policy Services at the Heritage Foundation and a former Senate aide, told the Daily Signal in an email. In a statement released Monday, Senator Chuck Grassley, Republican of Iowa, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, acknowledged a request from Democrats to delay Gorsuch's committee vote. Any members may hold over nominations on the agenda for the first time, the statement said. Gorsuch will be held over 1 week. Democrats are using committee rules to delay Gorsuch's vote, meaning that he will not likely see a full Senate vote until April the 5th, according to Bovard. The committee will now vote on April the 3rd, Bovard wrote. However, once the nominee is reported out of committee, Senate rules require the nomination to lay over 1 calendar day, so the full Senate would not be able to take up the nomination until April the 5th. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York, has promised to obstruct Gorsuch's confirmation process in any way possible, saying on Thursday, vote against the high court nominee. The next one we have headlines. It says GOP Congress is facing a $2 trillion funding hole. When one strips away the partisan rhetoric and posturing, the practical impact of Friday's GOP failure to repeal Obamacare has a specific monetary impact, approximately $1 trillion. Since the Obamacare repeal bill would have eliminated most of the 2010 health law's taxes, this would have lowered by a similar amount the revenue baseline for tax reform. Essentially, with the Obamacare taxes gone, easier to pay for lowering tax rates. Now, if Republicans want to eliminate the Obamacare taxes as part of tax reform and ensure the bill does not add to the deficit, which they need to do to assure Trump's reform process continues under avoiding the need for 60 votes in the Senate, they will have to raise almost $1 trillion in revenue. In other words, all else equal, how much less tax cuts Trump and the Republicans will be able to pursue, unless, of course, they somehow find a source of $1 trillion in tax revenue or otherwise simply add to the budget deficit. Care overhang. Considering Paul Ryan's statement on Friday, it appears that, at least for the time being, Republicans would leave the Obamacare taxes in place. That just means the Obamacare taxes stay with Obamacare, he said. We're going to go fix the rest of the tax code. While the GOP will be hard-pressed to find $1 trillion in offsetting savings or revenues, their headaches could be doubled if the proposed border adjustment tax fails to pass next. As a reminder, is expected to generate as much as $1.8 trillion in offset revenues. Should BAT be no dead on arrival, that's another $1.2 trillion in potential government revenues that is gone. Is off of Liberty Headlines, and it says Hillary's email scandal's not over yet. Donald Trump joked during the presidential campaign that the Russians should try to find the missing emails of Democrat Hillary Clinton, who used an unsecured server while she was Secretary of State, and that perhaps he would authorize an investigation that might put her in jail if he became president. Victory over Clinton in the 2016 presidential race, he's largely been quiet about any misdeed she committed in violation of the trust Americans gave her when she was appointed by Barack Obama. Others, however, have not. The newest move comes from Judicial Watch, which has sued the federal government for not carrying out a routine assessment of the damage that may have been done to America's security by her actions. The case against the the case against the Office of National Intelligence and the Department of State is intended to force the government to produce a report that details whether Clinton's scandalous activities or email practices damaged national security. The lawsuit cites Intelligence Community Directive 732, a 2014 rule that requires a damage assessment to be conducted if there is an actual or suspected unauthorized disclosure or compromise of classified national intelligence that may cause damage to U.S. national security. Despite Directive 732, Judicial Watch notes the Office of National Intelligence announced in September of 2016 that no intelligence damage assessment into Clinton's practices would happen. Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton says the lawsuit gives the Trump administration a golden opportunity to hold Clinton and the Obama administration accountable. The Obama administration conspired with Hillary Clinton regarding her email, so it is no surprise officials wouldn't want to hold her to account for her classified materials, Fenton said. The lawsuit is an opportunity for the Trump administration to get back to basics on the Clinton email scandal and find out what damage was done to our national security as a result of her illicit email practices. The suit zeroes in on FBI Director James Comey and the details he provided in his July 2016 announcement that he would not refer prosecution to the Justice Department. 30,000 emails returned to the State Department. 110 emails in 52 email chains have been determined by the owning agency to contain classified information at the time they were sent or received. Comey said at the time, 8 of those chains contained information that was top secret at the time they were sent. 36 chains contained secret information at the time, and 8 contained confidential information, which is the lowest level of classification. The lawsuit claims the Office of the Director of National Intelligence has directly violated the intelligence community's Directive 732 and failed to produce an assessment into Clinton's email practices, which is required to do regardless of what the FBI claims. In addition to the ODNI and the State Department, Judicial Watch is going after anyone even remotely involved in obstructing access to the emails. The suit names Michael Dempsey as acting director of national intelligence, William Evanina as national counterintelligence executive, and Rex W. Tillerson as Secretary of State. Judicial Watch said in its case in U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia that it sought records about the decision beginning last fall. The problem, the complainant explains, is that during her tenure as U.S. Secretary of State from January of 2009 to February of 2013, Hillary Rodham Clinton used at least one unofficial unsecured email account, one or more unofficial unsecured email servers, and multiple unofficial unsecured devices to send and receive email when conducting official State Department business. But the assessment was not done even after Following a year-long investigation into Hillary Clinton's email practices, the FBI concluded that emails went or received by the secretary on her unsecure, unofficial email server contained top secret, secret, and confidential information. While Comey found Clinton was extremely careless, he recommended against charging her criminally. The case says it was Director of National Intelligence James Clapper who reportedly decided that the required assessment would not be conducted. Judicial Watch said that if the intelligence community had conducted a damage assessment of Secretary Clinton's email practices, plaintiff undoubtedly would have submitted a Freedom of Information Act request for the report of the assessment and for any other records about the assessment as part of its ongoing investigation. Judicial Watch claims the Administrative Procedure Act was violated. WND reported earlier this year a Justice Department Inspector General started an investigation into the FBI's handling of the case. It is rare for the Inspector General to publicly disclose investigations, but the Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz did just that when he announced the probe in a statement. Horowitz said the Justice Department will look into allegations that department and FBI employees improperly disclosed non-public information and whether some officials should have removed themselves from the probe. The next article I have for you is off of BizPac Review, and it says member of Freedom Caucus resigns from group after fallout, saying no is easy, leading is hard. Angered over the obstruction of the American Health Care Act, one House Freedom Caucus member left the group. Texas Representative Ted Poe resigned from the caucus on Sunday after it stood in the way of the Obamacare replacement last week. To deliver on the conservative agenda we have promised the American people for 8 years, we must come together and find solutions to move this country forward, the Texas representative said in a statement. Saying no is easy, leading is hard, but that is what we were elected to do. Leaving this caucus will allow me to be a more effective member of Congress and advocate for the people of Texas. It is time to lead. His announcement came on the same day there was significant other fallout from the failed health care bill. On Saturday, the president urged his supporters to tune in to watch Judge Jeanine Pirro on Fox News Hour before she laced into House Speaker Paul Ryan and called for him to step down. Although White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus insisted that it was coincidental, many speculated that it was a calculated move by the president. And on Sunday, before Poe's announcement, President Trump took aim at the Freedom Caucus in a tweet that blamed them for keeping Obamacare intact and Planned Parenthood funded. The next article I have for you is off of BizPac Review, and it says Chelsea Clinton brutally mocked when pick of Lincoln in a Make America Great Again hat triggers epic stuck on stupid question. Chelsea Clinton probably didn't think this one through. She sent out a tweet that says, "Please tell me this is photoshopped, please." You think? Clinton was referring to this tweet by WPTV's Andrew Lofholm, which is Lincoln with the Make America Great red baseball cap on his head. And Andrew Lofholm says in his tweet, the cover of the 2017 Lincoln Day dinner program for Republican Party of Palm Beach County tonight at Mar-a-Lago. So yes, Chelsea, it was obviously photoshopped. You're welcome. Does that make you feel better? Needless to say, Clinton was brutally mocked on Twitter, starting with this zinger courtesy of Ben Shapiro, which says, no, Lincoln actually wore that hat in 1865. It was found at Ford's Theater. Another one says, Chelsea Clinton, no, this is the exact hat Lincoln was wearing when he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. People forget that. And another one says, nope, they found a picture of Lincoln wearing a Make America Great Again hat from the 19th century. No Photoshop needed. There's another one with a picture of Lincoln holding a cell phone out in front of himself like he's taking a selfie, and it says, a picture President Lincoln took with his iPhone. Please don't say this picture was photoshopped. There was no Photoshop back then. Oh, these people are hysterical. And there's some other ones here. If you want to pull them up and take a look at them, they got another one of Washington with a "Make America Great Again" hat on. I can't make this stuff up. Oh my goodness. The last article in this episode is off All News Pipeline. It says the if this continues to happen, America is doomed. Millennial charts show why America is in such trouble. So often we see the terms millennial and snowflake in reference to what we are witnessing across the nation's college campuses, where what is said meets demands for speech police, what is worn is called racist or receives accusations of cultural appropriation, what groups you belong to, who you choose to speak to in your groups are all subjects to protest, claims of victimhood, the need for bigger warnings, or a safe place to hide from any opinion that they disagree with. Well, I have some bad news for those of you that grew up to understand that when we became adults, we were expected to become self-sufficient and responsible. Now, millennials have redefined the word adult, meaning that they can self-identify as one when they have moved out of their parents' home, have a job, and pay their own bills. Here's the kicker. The average age these millennials self-identify as adults is 30 years old, meaning half are older and half are younger than that, making 30 the average. So some millennials do not consider themselves adults until they're 40. According to a new study by Abodo, the average age of 34.1% of millennials in the U.S. still live at home with their parents. According to the Elite Daily, millennials are shaping up to be the largest workforce ever, making up 36% of the workforce. By 2030, that number is expected to rise to 75%, with approximately 80 million millennials in the United States making themselves the largest living generation. It's very interesting to note the justification that Abodo writer attempts to give for the reason so many millennials live at home. In their conclusion, which blames high rents, stating millennials aren't earning as much as their parents did when they were the same age. Additionally, wages aren't increasing at the same rate as rents. In all of the cities we examined, MSAs with more than 1 million residents, millennials living at home earned a median monthly income of $1,121, nearly $1,000 less than the median monthly income of all millennials, which is $2,023. Do they earn less because they don't need to pay rent? Or are they staying with their parents because median rents account for nearly their entire check? I call foul. They just ordered a false choice because other information shows exactly why millennials tend to earn less than their parents did in relation to rent or mortgage. And it's called a work ethic, or in their case, lack of one. Millennials are snowflakes. Job hopping. Perhaps the fact that millennials have an average job tenure of 2 years before hopping along to another job should be factored into why they are not earning enough to support themselves. Generally, pay raises occur according to the time on the job and job performance. So job hopping every couple of years tends to affect the amount of money brought in monthly. Demands. Perhaps also a millennial's insistence that they get a say in how things are run might have something to do with the fact that they don't move up the company as fast as they desire. Those of us that had to go out and support ourselves at 18 to 21 understood and still do that when you work for someone else, they rule. They're the boss. They make the decisions on how the companies are run. If millennials want that right, they should go start their companies and be the boss. But wait, they can't. They can't even afford to leave mommy and daddy yet. in that same article, after it states that millennials also think their managers could learn a few things from them. Really? They walk into a job with no experience except the snowflakeism that they learned in college and think that rather than sitting down and shutting up and being trained to do the job they're hired to do, that they should be teaching the bosses or the managers. Here's another little tidbit from that Elite Daily piece. Millennials don't like being told how to do their work and when to do it. They rate flexibility as their number one concern, rating it above even healthcare coverage. Anybody else seeing why millennials cannot seem to make enough money to move away from home? It reminds me of the parody video on a millennial job interview. Yet after reading the latest millennial news and especially how they are rewriting career rules, it doesn't seem to be a parody after all. And they got a video in this called Hiring a Justice Warrior. If you want to pull that up and take a look at that. It says employers taking a stand. Rather than allowing these little cupcakes to rewrite career rules, employers need to take a stand, demand that the employee fit into their company, not change their procedures and requirements in order to fit the employee's demands. One employer has done just that. His name is Kyle Ray's, and he is the CEO of the Silent Marketing Partner. He has designed a snowflake survey, which has triggered millennial snowflakes all across the country and has gotten him interviewed multiple times on TV. His belief is simple, as he states in the article he wrote at the New Boston Post, where he says the truth of it that nobody talks about is that you need to fit the culture of a company or it's just not going to work out. He calls the snowflake test a filtering process and includes a few examples out of the 30 questions that are part of his test, which he says are going to give HR managers and the PC police night sweats. Outside of standard benefits, what benefits should a company offer employees? What are your feelings about employees or clients carrying guns? What are your feelings about safe spaces in challenging work environments? Should trigger warnings be issued before we release contents for clients or the company that might be considered controversial? How do you feel about police? When was the last time you cried and why? What are your thoughts on the current college environment as it pertains to a future workforce? What does faith mean to you? You see someone stepping on an American flag, what happens next? This is the same man that in April 2016 wrote an open letter to college crybabies from a CEO, which explained a few facts of life to college students about what to expect when they entered the real world, including that excuses might fly in college, but they are not going to fly when we're paying you to actually get things done. And the only safe place is your home. And there is no such thing as free, and success is hard work. Interestingly, the publication allowed 2 reader responses, one from a female snowflake who basically attempts to explain why she is a snowflake and an activist, and then plays the victim card by asking, why do you view millennials with such detest and hatred? Then another response from a young man who explains that he and his brother work full-time, manage and do all their schoolwork and classes, and states there are still some of us who are still unwussified. Questions to readers after reading both of those responses. If you were an employee, try that again. If you were an employer like Mr. Ray's, which of those 2 would you hire and which would you show the door? Bottom line, every employer in America that is not a millennial snowflake themselves should be filtering their potential employees like Mr. Ray's is, rather than allowing these little snowflakes to demand changes in hours, work conditions, and work ethics. Otherwise, America is doomed. Below is a Fox and Friends interview with Ray's from March the 15th of 2017. And I can't read the whole title because it trails off. It says CEO gives job applicants a snowflake, and I'm assuming that's test. So, if you want to pull that up, you can. The original November 2016 video discussed above with over 5 million views listed below. And it says here that this video is unavailable. So for some reason, apparently that video has been pulled. But there are a couple other ones there in that article if you want to pull them up to view them for yourself. That's all I have in this episode. If you like what I'm doing here, be sure and give it a thumbs up. Share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. That way you'll stay informed. I'll see you in the next episode.